goods in the market, which are not only clear violations of lawful standards but also a health hazard to consumers. The Chamber is issuing a call to the Bureau of Standards and the Government Analysis Food and Drug Department to ensure that an investigation is conducted and any product that is not within the guidelines be removed from shelves and prohibited for sale, the Chamber said. Internationally, Quincy Jones, the celebrated U.S. musician and producer who worked with Michael Jackson, Frank Sinatra, Ray Charles, and many others, has died at age 91. Jones' publicist Arnold Robinson said he has passed away peacefully on Sunday night at his home in Bel Air. The family said in a statement, "Tonight, with full but broken hearts, we must share the news of our father and brother Quincy Jones' passing. And although this is an incredible loss for our family, we celebrate the great life that he lived and know there will never be another like him." Jones was best known as the producer of Michael Jackson's Thriller album. Over a career spanning more than 75 years, he won 28 Grammy Awards and was named as one of the most influential jazz musicians of the 20th century by Time magazine. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
WESN.
Hello there and welcome to AM Prime on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's a bright day. I hope wherever you are, in whatever part of Trinidad and Tobago or across the region or wider world, I hope it is a bright and beautiful day because of the very epic weather that we were experiencing last night. Great lightning show, by the way. The universe really knows how to flex its power sometimes, but nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this edition of the program. We hope all is well with you. Well, my first conversation this morning focuses on a topic that may seem a bit odd to you, but it is very much relevant as we speak about what is happening throughout the world today. And that is the relationship between the state and religion. Now, it is often argued that the state cannot afford, it is an ill-conceived idea to separate its affairs from religion. There are those that have argued that for the sake of democracy, there should be something in respect to a form of separation. Exactly what is the relationship between the state and religion? Is there any one way that we can explore this topic? Well, a gentleman who is more familiar, more educated on this topic, and has also taught me quite a lot, is Yuvan Das from the University of the West Indies Political Sciences Department. He joins us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Das, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Mr. Shah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Das, how would you describe the relationship between the state and religion versus what the relationship should be? And I'm not speaking about one state in particular. I'm speaking about generally in terms of a political science approach.
Okay, so generally, let's begin with the amorphous combination of how it happened. Religion and state is like two sides of the same coin, coming from the past to the present. A lot of kings and queens in the past and a lot of empires use religion as a way to control people because they realize that religion versus law sometimes capable of controlling and influencing individuals' behavior, like a form of code. All right. So in the past, you will find that states has used religion as a key tool, in the matters of governance, in the matters of influencing the outcomes of decisions and influencing people's behavior. But I believe that there should be a clear separation. And so far, we have seen some countries across the world use the Constitution, the Bill of Rights to establish that clear separation, to have the state and decisions by the state be guided by the influence of religion. Also, to have a separation to promote freedom and also lack of discrimination.
Lack of discrimination. Are we speaking about religious freedom here?
Yes, freedom to worship, freedom to practice your religion, as well as to attend religious organizations, so that there's no clear dichotomy, so to speak, when it comes to religion and the state. And some constitutions don't utilize that ability to manage that dichotomy, but some do. So it all depends on the level of leadership and political governance in your country. You have some radical states, like you think about Venezuela or Saudi Arabia or North Korea, that will use religion and the aspects of it to dominate their citizens. But you have France and the US and other democratic countries, even Trinidad and Tobago, would have that level of distinction and even freedoms. Yeah.
But in such nations that the latter examples that you gave, within recent years, have we seen an encroachment on that boundary between state and religion? For example, in Europe, we have seen the rise of the right wing once more. That has become more prominent as states now look at their self-interests rather than the collective interests of European nations. And part of that has been a campaign in respect to religion and going back to religious principles and values. With those being a part of election campaigns and such conversations taking place on an election platform, is that an encroachment upon the boundaries between religion and state?
Well, there's a delicate balance between that and that instance. Like I was looking at the US elections and the concept of abortion and how, the Republicans and the Democrats would use that as an instance to bring religion into the mix within the election. I wouldn't say it's an encroachment. I would say that they use it sometimes for political gain, and they influence the citizens by the means of religion for their favor in terms of voting. Now, that can be a political propaganda, but it really influences the people's decision, not so much encroaches on their right to practice freedom of religion. I would think that, so it gives them the ability of freedom to practice and to vote based on rationality or public choice theory, as you would say. Remember, Marxists would say that religion is sometimes the opium of the masses. And even in the Protestant ethic, when he discovered the use of Calvinism, where God's chosen sometimes means that, hey, you need to work hard in this life and accumulate wealth and knowledge so that you can be chosen to enter the gates of heaven. So it's been proven from time to time that, you know, politicians and those in power, even the capitalists, will use religion sometimes to, you know, twist the favor, shift the balance, so to speak, in their favor.
So let me get back to that point of religious freedom for a moment. Is a formal separation. You've stated your opinion at the beginning of this interview that you think that there needs to be a clear separation. Is a formal separation of religion and state necessary for religious freedom? Or is religious freedom possible where a state religion is recognized?
That's both true, right? Because in societies, I look at Iran, I look at Saudi Arabia, and I've seen that even though there is no clear separation, the religious doctrines and religious laws and institutions, they come together, they promote harmony and synergy of the people. It even creates a sort of identity for the people in terms of that freedom, in terms of that cognitive ability to worship and represent their religion, shared values in society, as Durkheim would put it, you know, the ability to come together and to have that level of shared belief systems, right? So it's possible to have proper decision making and representation with religious doctrines within inculcated into the state. It's also possible to have a clear separation and create that level of balance and respect for each religion, like we have it in Trinidad and Tobago, where, you know, there are religious holidays for each religion, and the state would not distinguish between one or the other or promote one or the other. They would get engaged in all aspects of religious holidays, and they would promote their ability to support all. So both sides of the coin are the same. It depends on the state that you live, it depends on the political leadership, it depends on the people and the level of synergy and harmony towards that religion, but it can also cause conflict. Because if you have a state that doesn't have clear separation, what if you have multiple diverse religions in that state, and then one can be selected as the main religion over the other? And that can create a level of hostility towards people, citizens, and even religious organizations.
You used the example of Trinidad and Tobago there. Let me take it one step further, focusing on that example for a moment. Should public money or money that the state has accrued be used to fund faith-based initiatives if we are speaking about religious freedom and if we are speaking about inclusion for all faiths?
Right. So in theory, if you spend money on religious institutions, you cannot limit it to one or a few. You have to be equal across the board and promote equity in the distribution of resources to any religious institutions, right? If that's the way the state wants to practice it, that's the way it has to be. On the flip side, you should not support one over the other, all right? So it's either you spend equally on all and be diverse and have that separation, or you don't. Because if you don't, that means you would show clear favoritism towards any religious group or organization within the country. And if you do that, then you can create a nexus of separation that would include favoritism or any sort of ill will towards creating that level of favoritism towards one group or the other.
In that regard, to summarize all that has been said thus far in this conversation, is it that the state simply cannot afford to divorce itself from religion? It cannot afford to divorce itself from faith-based organizations for the very simple reason of the promotion of religious freedoms and, by extension, democracy?
Well, I wouldn't say it cannot, but like I said, it's a very delicate balance. You cannot just remove something that has been a tradition for generations, you know? religion and politics is something that go hand in hand. And if you want to promote democracy, you need to have that aspect of separation totally down. Also, to promote cooperation amongst diverse heterogeneous societies like ours in Trinidad and Tobago. So the state can't just come and say, well, we don't support any religious aspects, or we stand clear of that, because everyone's a member of society, and every religious organization, groups, and members would contribute to the successful policy making of society. Now, there is a level of, I would say, conflict, especially in Trinidad and Tobago. So think about it. Some individuals would say that the PNM is a predominantly Christian party. And then you have others would say that the United National Congress is predominantly a Hindu party. So they might have some level of interplay between those two parties when it comes to religious separation, as well as support for political parties. But that is not enshrined in any law or regulation. That's just our cultural attributes towards how we throw support behind our political parties. But sometimes political parties can use that doctrine to influence decisions and to say, well, we are for you, we are for our religion, and you support us. And that's how that level of conflict comes about when it comes to religion and preserving democracy. So yes, separation is very difficult to achieve when it comes to that.
So historically, as you've mentioned, religion has always played a central role in life and politics. How relevant is the historical aspect of religion today in respect to that relationship between the state and religion? Again, coming back to the point that you're saying, historically, it has always played a role in political life. In modern day society, how much of a case is that still relevant?
Well, it is relevant. Even to today, it may not be as relevant as 30 or 40 years ago. But you see some states making that transition for clear separation and to have that level of distinction between religion and state by making freedoms and laws within the Constitution to have that clear separation. Like even in Trinidad and Tobago, under Section 4, we are free from religious bias, making decisions for government against religious bias. Also, if you move even further under Section 53 of the Constitution, the government has the ability to make laws for peace and order and stability, which means that under Section 4 and 53, you can interpret that to mean that the government must deliver in terms of their decision-making capacity, free from bias and discrimination. So we have moved forward in terms of the state and religion to have a separation, especially in modern societies. But we can still see examples today of that separation out the window in some societies. So it's a give and take, so to speak. Our history has been inculcated with the doctrine of religion and state. And even though we have modernized so much, there are some societies throughout the world today that still keep that doctrine close to heart. So I would say it's a 50-50, so to speak, in terms of our evolution of the state and the separation of politics.
I'm curious to know, and I'm glad that you've quoted our Constitution as an example. From an international or a global political climate, has there ever been any arguments or at least any doctrines that exist that speak about the right of religious freedom and the guarantees of the protection of such religious freedoms from an international perspective, where global leaders have come together and made an agreement that this is what should also be of great focus and priority when we speak about government and governance?
Yes, I could speak about the US and France as well, when they came together with the Bill of Rights and the separation and doctrines within their constitutions to have that level of distinction and separation between religion and politics and to protect that for democracy and individual freedom rights. So it came as a means to have goodwill, as well as proper decision-making for policies, as well as discrimination against any particular religion and freedom of worship. And that is the ideal concept when you want to preserve democracy and participation of all citizens into the decision-making process. So yeah, internationally, it exists, and a lot of countries would follow suit in the near future, to initiate that separation. So we learn by best practice, and especially for third world nations and developing nations, we would look at these examples when utilizing any level of constitutional reform and change in the future. So I think that we could learn a lot from that.
Has there also ever been an expression of fear towards secularism, where there has been arguments that the state should not be secular? And I'm not talking about giving examples now of states that are certainly not, but have there been arguments historically and even now that secularism is actually something that could create more division than anything else?
So I remember in Ireland, and kings of the past in England would argue that it's impossible to separate religion and state. And to do so is to divorce oneself from divinity and to separate God, who is almighty and who would rule in society. So that constitutes now blasphemy, so to speak. And a lot of them would initiate that society cannot exist without religion. And that's the basis of law and the creation, of the ideal in society of what is. But I think that tradition has far, evaporated from modern thinking and modern theology of how the concept of separation should exist in society. And I don't think that is something in a a modern society today that would have that doctrine, inculcated into the Constitution or any position that the government would want to make in societies.
So it is not the case then, it would be inaccurate to suggest that the secular state is under threat in modern day politics.
Well, like I said before, it's 50-50, because I gave examples of countries that do and countries that don't, and the ideology depends on the leadership at the time and I would say, conservatism, according to Edmund Burke, of the society that would influence decisions as well.
Now, when it comes to this particular subject matter, are there any other considerations that need to be discussed if we speak about the separation of religion and state?
Right. So, first of all, you need to have principles that guide a clear separation in the Constitution so that it can be interpreted in case of any unorthodox exemption in society, so that it can be interpreted by a court of law, right? You need to have the exact freedom and rights established in a Bill of Rights. You also need to have clear decision-making when it comes to who can participate in terms of all religious groups, in terms of all pressure groups and other interaction groups in society, to have that clear indication of participation in societies. I think that these concepts are, somewhat underestimated towards freedoms in society, and all groups in society, including religious groups, should have that level of participation. I don't know if you remember Ammon and Sidney Verbrough when we talked about political culture and the level of participation from parochial to subject to participant. And our concept in Trinidad and Tobago, together with a lot of developing countries across the world, leans on the balance of more subject and less participant, because we don't have that level of citizen engagement in our countries. And that is really crucial when it comes to religion, because if you don't give these groups the freedoms and the respect that they deserve, especially when it's not in law, then anything can happen. Their freedoms can be encroached upon, it could be ignored totally. So I believe that those are some of the points that we could learn from when it comes to this religion and state and the separation.
In Trinidad and Tobago in particular, generally speaking, we are a good example of a secular state that has respected those boundaries, but also in our constitution enshrines such protections and such freedom.
The question that you're asking, remember, as I said, it does, right? But it doesn't give specifics as to particular separation of religion. It can be interpreted under Section 4 and 53 that the government can make policies with regards to clear separations, but it's not specifically stated. And I think that could be part of the constitutional reform process to have that level of separation clearly stated. So, you know, one for the government to consider.
Yeah, I asked you to repeat that point so that it is clearly stated.
Right. Yeah, so that would be a good idea towards separation. If you want to look at modern organizations, modern states, modern constitutional arrangements between the citizens and the government, to have that level of separation enshrined.
Indeed. Mr. Das, I want to thank you very much for your time and for joining us on the program this morning. Thank you for really bringing to us a context to this particular subject of discussion. There was no particular reason for having it, but more so the fact that observing throughout the world what is taking place in respect to different movements and really how the world is evolving and how politics is evolving, such discussion was warranted. So thank you very much for your time and for joining us on the program this morning to share, of course, these thoughts and perspectives with us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me again.
All the very best. Take care.
Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on AM Prime. When we return, we have some updates to share with you in respect to another big development when it comes to global politics. And interesting enough, that is the US elections. Polls opened in Georgia just about 33 minutes ago, and we'll get into that as polls close from about 7 p.m. tonight in certain states. In Hawaii, for example, it closes at midnight. But we'll get into all of that after this. Stay with us.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands, and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus, quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide: Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. Many of you would be following throughout the course of the day updates in respect to the elections taking place in the United States of America. Kamala Harris, the Democratic representative, and Donald Trump share two very different views on the U.S., and the course of the next 4 years has the power to shape many generations, with the president having even the ability to shape the federal court and the American government. So, of course, we are looking towards that golden number of 270 electoral college votes. As I mentioned, polls opened just about 38 minutes ago. In states like Georgia, they would close at 7 o'clock tonight. So that's when we'll start getting an idea of ballots coming in, of course. But other states like Hawaii, for example, they close their polls at midnight. But as I mentioned, the golden number is 270 electoral college votes. And already we are seeing media houses, of course, sharing a lot of images across the United States. A lot of early voting has taken place. A record number of early voting over the last month has taken place, I believe 17 million plus. Even across various states, for example, Washington, D.C., the homes of U.S. politicians and businesses have already begun boarding up in the event that there is civil unrest following the election results tonight. So that is incredible what is already taking place there, with businesses boarding up as a preventative measure in the event of civil unrest. But let's get into some of these to share with you in respect to this. First, let's take a look at this report that actually shows the key moments of the US election campaign in 2024. Of course, with Kamala Harris being announced or given the endorsement of Joe Biden back in July, following mounting pressure, he stepped aside, and Donald Trump actually gaining a lot in the polls within the last few weeks. These are the key moments of the election campaign 2024.
For more than a year, America has been in campaign mode. It's been controversial, unpredictable, and at points absurd. Now we're in the final stretch with the race between these two deadlocked. Here are the most memorable moments from the US election 2024. It all started back in 2023 with the Republican debates. Donald Trump didn't take part, but he was a constant presence, leading to this moment from former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
No one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
Despite the attacks, Trump triumphed, winning the Republican nomination for the third time. But at the end of May 2024, he became the first former president to be criminally convicted. He was found guilty of falsifying business records to hide a hush money payment to porn star Stormy Daniels. He won't be sentenced until after the election.
If they can do this to me, they can do this to anyone. These are bad people. These are, in many cases, I believe, sick people.
But attention soon turned to the first debate between Trump and Biden. Democrats were already nervous about the president's ability to run again. And when the two candidates came head-to-head, that anxiety was realised.
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
In the end, the two men just talked about golf.
I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest round. It was a 6 handicap of all.
I was at 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8. But I have, you know how many...
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
As Biden faced calls to quit.
When you get knocked down, you get back up.
Trump was shot in the ear at a rally in Pennsylvania. A failed assassination attempt, and it wouldn't be the last. Just days later, Trump appeared for the first time since the shooting at the Republican convention, wearing a bandage on his ear. Other delegates copied the look, a sign of their devotion. He also announced Ohio Senator J.D. Vance as his running mate, but it was wrestler Hulk Hogan who produced one of the more memorable moments.
Trumpomania! Run wild, brother!
But July was the month the race changed drastically as Joe Biden accepted the game was up and quit as the Democratic candidate. He announced on social media he was backing his Vice President Kamala Harris, who quickly joined the campaign trail.
The one thing Kamala Harris has always been: fearless.
Despite not having the best poll ratings, she was buoyed by momentum and was embraced by a younger age group when British singer Charlie XCX posted "Kamala is Brat," referencing her album by the same name.
360, when you're in the mirror, do you know what you see?
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
I'm so Julia.
You exist in the context.
666 with a princess tree.
Donald Trump, meanwhile, was criticised for saying the vice president chose to become black.
I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
In August, Kamala Harris announced her running mate as Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Later that month, the Democratic National Convention was held in Chicago. Barack Obama left some shocked as he delivered this joke about Donald Trump's crowd sizes.
The crazy conspiracy theories. This weird obsession with crowd sizes.
And during Tim Walz's speech, his son showed his pride for his dad.
Kamala Harris, let's have a good debate.
See you. Fun.
Thank you.
Back on the trail in September, Trump and Harris went head-to-head for the first, and it turned out, only time.
People start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you.
And then Trump made this unevidenced claim.
They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
Last night's presidential debate apparently moved the needle with at least one voter, one big voter.
Very famous one, Taylor Swift.
Straight after the debate, and Harris got a major endorsement from Taylor Swift.
Driver! Walk straight!
But 5 days later, there was a second apparent assassination attempt on Donald Trump, this time while he was playing golf at his West Palm Beach club.
As I was saying...
In October, Trump returned to the site of the first assassination attempt and was joined on stage by Elon Musk, who seemed pretty happy, to say the least, to be with the former president.
Take over, Elon, just take over.
This one of the many defining images from the campaign. As the race neared its end, Kamala Harris got endorsement after endorsement from celebrities like Bruce Springsteen, Stevie Wonder, and Beyonce.
I'm not here as a celebrity. I'm not here as a politician. I'm here as a mother.
Surprised McDonald's customers, meanwhile, found Donald Trump serving their burgers and fries.
This is not a normal situation, is it, huh? What a good-looking family.
The former commander-in-chief donning a chef's uniform for this campaign stunt. Millions of Americans have already voted for their choice for president, many influenced in their decision by a dizzying year of political campaigning. Not long to go now before we find out whether Trump or Kamala will take the White House. Fred Dimbleby, ITV News.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so just to put it forward, that was courtesy of ITV News. There will be those that argue that that report does not show the full picture. I fully understand, and I'm aware of that. Not all these reports actually show a lot of what President Donald Trump has stated or what Vice President Kamala Harris has stated. It doesn't show the truest of pictures. It's just really a highlight reel of some of the major points during this particular election campaign. But like I said, it doesn't paint the full picture. So, of course, just bear that in mind going forward. Now, how will we know when the next president of the United States has won the election? How do we have a better idea of that? And to be very honest with you, it kind of really depends. I mean, some states can turn results quite quickly. Then there are mail-in ballots, which are counted after ballots have been, those that are cast in person have been counted. In the last US presidential election in 2020, it wasn't until the Saturday after the polling day that US media houses were confident enough to call the results. So this may not necessarily be something that we see happening overnight into tomorrow, or even quite possibly into Thursday. This can take a lot more time. So just have to wait to see. But of course, we might get the preliminary figures later on this evening when polls start to close. Now, moving on with the next debate, as I mentioned, how does a representative win the presidency of the United States? The US has a very interesting system known as the Electoral College. Each state is allocated a number of Electoral College votes depending on its population. Across the US, there are 538 Electoral Colleges. The golden number of 270 then declares the next president of the US. Let's take a look at this report that actually gives us an idea or better understanding as to how the Electoral College works.
Everyone is trying to predict how America will vote, but America has already been voting, and it tells us some quite interesting things. We want to start with the Sky poll.
Because I'm talking to my directors, I'm saying, oh, hold up, wait, it's the next one, it's the next one, it's not this one. Let's take a look at the next regional update. Man, we have fun sometimes. Let's take a look at this report.
240 million people are voting in this year's election, but the US president is not chosen directly by the voters. It's not a popular vote. Instead, they're chosen by the Electoral College. You see, each American state has a fixed number of electoral votes. That's according to the state's population. Whoever wins the state wins all the electoral votes. The Electoral College has a total of 538 votes. A candidate needs 270 or more to win. So it's a complicated system, and one that's gotten some pushback in the recent years. We'll tell you why.
On the 5th of November, millions of voters in the United States will cast their ballot to elect their next president. However, there's a catch. The world's oldest democracy does not hold elections which can be considered as the easiest to understand. In fact, the American voting system is quite complicated. Now, most democracies in the world follow something that's called the popular vote, where voters directly cast their ballots to a political party or leader. It's a direct transfer of the vote from the voter to whoever is on the ballot. But the United States does not follow this. In fact, it's the only democracy in the world that has an indirect voting system called the Electoral College. Simply put, the Electoral College is a process of voting. It's not really a college. It was established in 1787 AD and was included in the US Constitution by the Founding Fathers. The Electoral College is basically the selection of electors who are called delegates. On the 5th of November, when Americans will queue up to vote, they won't actually be voting for their next president. Instead, they'll actually be voting for delegates who represent their respective states, and these delegates will then vote for the president. So, how does the Electoral College work? The Electoral College is made up of 538 delegates. You must be wondering where the number 538 comes from. It's the number of senators and representatives from each of the 50 states. The breakdown of 538 includes exactly 100 senators, 2 from each state, and 438 representatives from the 50 states. Each state's number of representatives is based on its population. Let's take a closer look with an example. California and Texas are the two most populous states, and so they have a higher number of representatives. However, regardless of the population of the states, each of them gets 3 votes to start with. The remaining are then added depending on the population of the state. However, that does not mean that the states with a higher population enjoy more voting rights. In fact, it can be quite the opposite. Let's take the example of 2 states. The population of Texas is over 29 million. On the other hand, Alaska has a much smaller population of just above 700,000. However, each representative from Texas and Alaska roughly represents the same proportion of the population. So, as Texas gets 38 representatives in the US Congress, Alaska gets 3. And this makes voting different in Texas and Alaska, because each of the 38 delegates from Texas now represent roughly over 760,000 people. Meanwhile, each delegate from Alaska represents over 250,000 people. Basically, it takes 760,000 people from Texas to get 1 vote, but it just takes 250,000 people from Alaska to get that same 1 vote. So the vote in Alaska can be considered a lot more influential. When Americans go to polls in November, they aren't exactly voting for the president directly, but their state's representatives, whether that's Democrat or Republican. And then these delegates give their votes to the presidential candidate from their party. Whichever candidate then wins the majority in a state, no matter how big or small it may be, wins all the electoral votes of that state. And in total, to win the race to the Oval Office, a candidate must win 270 and more votes across 50 states. So when Americans say this,
I love her. I am so glad to see a presidential nominee who is youthful and joyful, and I think that reflects right back onto the Democrats. My first time voting in a presidential election, and I could not be happier.
I don't know the exact numbers, but I know the last election, I think Trump got like 88 or 90% of the vote here. I think he's going to get that again.
The courts will take care of that. Let's take care of him in November.
what they really mean is that they will vote for the delegates who represent their political party. And then, those delegates will vote for the presidential candidate from their respective parties.
Kamala, you are fired! You're fired! Get out! Get out!
It's time to turn the page.
However, the delegates don't have to necessarily vote for the candidate that the population wants to give its vote to. In fact, electors are free to vote against the wishes of the people. And this is despite having been elected as a delegate by the voters. So, with how complex the electoral system is, should the US continue with it or adapt the much simpler popular voting system? A survey from 2023 shows that a majority of Americans want to do away with the Electoral College. A Pew Research study shows that nearly 2/3 of US citizens want popular voting. Americans say that it would truly reflect the mood of the nation for who should sit in the Oval Office. That's because a presidential candidate could win the popular vote, which means that more people voted for them, but they could lose the presidential race due to the Electoral College, where the victor is decided by the number of delegates and not the votes of the people. The Pew study has some more insights on the issue. It says that Democrats are far more likely than Republicans to support moving to the popular vote. On aggregate, over 80% of Democrats say that they would like to have the popular voting system in America. In contrast, about 45% of Republicans share the same sentiments. Moving away from party ideologies and towards demographies, almost 70% of Americans under the age of 50 prefer the popular vote. On the other hand, Americans who are 65 and older want the Electoral College to continue.
A very nice call from Kamala.
The current system allows a candidate to lose the popular vote, but still win the Electoral College. This occurred both in the 2000 and the 2016 elections, which were won by George W. Bush and Donald Trump, respectively. However, the only way to change the Electoral College would be through a constitutional amendment. But amending the constitution is a Herculean task. The last time it was done was in the year 1992, and it was about raising salaries for congressional lawmakers. So, for now, it looks like Americans will have to keep voting using the Electoral College to elect their president.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's a report giving you an idea of how the Electoral College in the United States works in respect to whether or not that system is likely to be in place. Not something that is up for conversation. It really doesn't matter at this point, of course, because the polls are open and the Electoral College process has been there since an independent United States. So again, that last part of the report this morning really does not have any sense of relevancy. It could be debated after the election, and quite possibly, dependent on the outcome of the election, it will be debated very much indeed, because as it suggests, you can win the popular vote but not necessarily win the election. So it's a very interesting system in the United States, and it can be very confusing, but hope that report in particular brought forward some sort of clarity. 270 is the golden number, the golden ticket, ladies and gentlemen, and at this point, of course, nothing to report on as yet, but I'm sure many eyes will be glued to the television, at least later this evening, and of course over the next couple of days. And of course the WESN will bring you as many updates as possible throughout the course of the day and through our regular live programming. There's, by the way, an election watch taking place tonight. Make America Great Again election watch taking place in Trinidad and Tobago on Cipriani Boulevard. I was shocked. I was amazed to see that such is happening. But I mean, it's a good thing. It shows that people do have an interest in global politics, regardless of whom they support. At least that interest exists. It would be interesting to see what the turnout is like, of course, but in conversations I've had with many Trinbagonians, they themselves are divided and split as per who is the best candidate for the US and who is the best candidate for the rest of the world. Let's take a break here on the program.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Newbie Macnish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Human remains found near Pointe-a-Pierre Beach. Argyle residents reclaim peace after recent murders. Regionally, City Chamber concerned at counterfeit expired goods on market. Internationally, Quincy Jones, giant of U.S. music, has died at age 91. Now for the details. Police are investigating after skeletal remains, including a skull, were found near Flowerpot Beach in Pointe-a-Pierre Sunday afternoon. Officers from Marabella and Monterey Post responded to an anonymous tip around 2 p.m. and discovered the bones in a bushy area close to the beach's car park. No clothing or personal items were recovered. District Medical Officer Dr. Santlal examined the remains, which are now awaiting further analysis at the Forensic Science Center. Investigations are ongoing. The quiet community of Argyle, Tobago is recovering after 3 murders disrupted the area's peace in recent months. The violence began on August 5th with the killing of Victoria Guerra, followed by Brandon Edwards on September 20th and Nicholas Mitchell on September 23rd. All on Lamy Road, the community rallied in response, holding vigils and supporting grieving families. Increased police patrols have helped ease fears, and residents say life is slowly returning to normal. Argyle Village Council Vice Chairman Delman Edwards noted that while some residents still feel uneasy, the community remains hopeful for lasting peace. Regionally, the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry on Saturday said that it has grown increasingly concerned by the non-compliance with Guyana's laws and regulations by retailers and supermarkets, particularly as it relates to quality and standards of goods being provided to consumers and the flouting of labor and tax laws. There has been an alarming increase in the presence of counterfeit, expired and inappropriately labeled goods in the market, which are not only clear violations of lawful standards but also a health hazard to consumers. The Chamber is issuing a call to the Bureau of Standards and the Government Analysis Food and Drug Department to ensure that an investigation is conducted and any product that is not within the guidelines be removed from shelves and prohibited for sale, the Chamber said. Internationally, Quincy Jones, the celebrated U.S. musician and producer who worked with Michael Jackson, Frank Sinatra, Ray Charles, and many others, has died at age 91. Jones' publicist Arnold Robinson said he has passed away peacefully on Sunday night at his home in Bel Air. The family said in a statement, "Tonight, with full but broken hearts, we must share the news of our father and brother Quincy Jones' passing. And although this is an incredible loss for our family, we celebrate the great life that he lived and know there will never be another like him." Jones was best known as the producer of Michael Jackson's Thriller album. Over a career spanning more than 75 years, he won 28 Grammy Awards and was named as one of the most influential jazz musicians of the 20th century by Time magazine. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands, and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust. Prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1, find the style number on the tag. Step 2, match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3, search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we do have a couple more updates to share with you this morning in respect to the US elections, going back to 1 week ago, because I know those people that are following the election may be very curious or maybe aching them to know what the polls are suggesting. It's very close. It's extremely close. It's very, very difficult to call. But let's take a look at a report from approximately 1 week ago that gave a better idea or a better understanding of what the US electorate were thinking. So this report on the US polls.
Everyone is trying to predict how America will vote, but America has already been voting, and it tells us some quite interesting things. We want to start with the Sky poll tracker first, the average of the most recent polls, and look at how much Harris's lead has narrowed. It's down to 0.4, less than 1 point after that healthy original lead. Now, this doesn't tell us who's going to win. It doesn't have much predictive power at all, apart from saying this is going to be close. So it all comes down to the votes. And this is how many votes have already been cast. 52 million have been mailed in or in-person voting. These are all early votes. There's twice as many people as voted in the entire UK general election. And there's also around 30% of the total votes that were cast in the last presidential election. So this is a really big, significant, important chunk. And there are things we can say about this, because when it comes to early voting, you can break it down by party registration. So we're going to talk about these swing states, the battleground states. These are states where the Republicans seem to have a lead in early voting. Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, healthy red leads. But have a look at this. This is the battleground states where the Democrats are doing well, again, according to early voting. Pennsylvania, that is really interesting because the polling shows that really, really tight, but there's a big Democrat lead. Same for Michigan, really, really tight polling, but again, a Democrat lead. But look at these ones. North Carolina here. That is really, really close. You've got Democrats, Republicans, and unaffiliated in grey, all are more or less the same place. And then Wisconsin, fine, you've got this Democrat lead here, but it is that 41% of votes which are unaffiliated. So really hard to say exactly what's happening in those states. Now, if we take this early voting, and it is just an indication, and we apply it to this race to 270 electoral college votes, you get the votes from the states, you add them to this column, and that's how you become president. Let's do that according to what the voting is telling us in the early voting. Give these states over here, Arizona and Nevada, to Donald Trump. Georgia as well, and you can see what's happened. That's put him up to 252. Let's give Pennsylvania to Harris and Michigan to Harris as well. According to that polling again, we still don't have a winner. Well, let's say Donald Trump wins North Carolina. It is really, really tight. Kamala Harris could go to Wisconsin, win that, and become president by just 2 electoral college votes. That's just how tight this whole thing could be. Now, it is worth noting as well, when it comes to this early voting, is not quite representative of the US electorate. We'll go through here, and this shows the demographic of this. And what you can see is that people aged 65 are over here in the early voting. They're way more represented than they are in the general population. That could favour Donald Trump. Older voters tend to go for the Republicans and Donald Trump. Another thing just to bear in mind when it's on the night itself, let's go back to 2020 and talk again about how early voting is important. So Georgia here, that was won by Joe Biden, just by 11,000 votes. Really, really tiny margin. But at one point, Donald Trump was nearly 400,000 votes up because of those early votes being counted first. Or compare it to another battleground state, North Carolina, again. At one point, Biden was more than the 400,000 votes up, but Donald Trump came back from that to win by more than 75,000. So when you're watching on the night, you might see a lot of early votes being counted, going for one candidate. Don't say that state has been decided, and don't say that the presidential race has been decided. It is the finest of margins still.
Just the previous video, which gave an understanding of how the Electoral College works. When you take a look at this particular poll, does it even actually render itself as being significant? It gives an idea of possibly what the outcome of the Electoral College can be. It gives an idea, but again, popular vote doesn't come into play here. So this, at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, as you say, the difference between the president and perhaps a retired politician could be 2 Electoral College votes, whether that is, of course, Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. So again, we're all paying attention to say, there might be some that are saying, I have enough distrust out about in Trinidad. I have enough to worry about. The US elections will play a key role in respect to geopolitics and quite possibly the economic future more so of Trinidad and Tobago. It can play a major role in that, even in respect to policy. So of course, just bear that in mind. It has the potential to do that. So if you're saying I have enough to worry and stress out about down here, I understand that. Believe you me, I very much understand that. But we are keeping an eye on that. There are updates to give you as well in respect to what's taking place in the United Kingdom, but that at this particular point is a little less relevant than what is happening today. We've got one more update to share with you. Again, just trying to give you perspectives, just trying to give you ideas and educate you this morning. You're probably wondering how come elections are being held on Tuesday. Well, there's actually an explanation for that as well. Yeah, let's take a look at this update.
The US will elect its 47th president on November 5th, which is a Tuesday. They elected their 46th president on November 3rd in 2020, which was also a Tuesday. What about the 45th and the 44th presidents? Let me cut to the chase. Over the past 175 years, the US has always elected its president on a Tuesday, more specifically on the Tuesday following the first Monday in the month of November, every 4 years. When did this become a polling tradition and why? Our next report tells you.
If there's one thing the year 2024 will be remembered for, it'll be elections. From India to Britain, the European Union to South Korea, South Africa, Finland, France, Taiwan, and even Russia. Over 60 nations held elections this year. However, it's not over yet. One last global election remains, and it's just around the corner. The United States, the world's oldest modern democracy, is set to vote this November. Americans will be choosing their 47th president. And running for the White House are former President Donald Trump and current Vice President Kamala Harris. The presidential race in the US happens every 4 years. However, there is something constant in each election that has remained unchanged for over 175 years, and that is the day of the week when the elections are held, Tuesday. This year as well, Americans will be voting on November 5th, which is also a Tuesday. So why is Tuesday connected to America's democracy? Well, it's a bit of coincidence and tradition. The election day in the United States has been set in stone by federal law. The U.S. law calls for a presidential poll to be held on the Tuesday after the first Monday in November. But how did the November Tuesday become so important for U.S. democracy? Let's find out. The U.S. Constitution does not designate a specific day for holding elections. However, it allows Congress to select the time and day for choosing electors or delegates. These delegates, in turn, vote to elect the president and vice president. The Constitution also gives some rights to the states. to choose the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives. However, it also permits Congress to make or alter those state rules. So if the day hasn't been fixed, then how did Tuesday come into the picture? The U.S. declared itself independent from Britain in 1776. The United States ratified its Constitution in 1788. This was followed by the first elections that were held between November of 1788 and June 1789. Yes, voting that is now done within one day took up to 6 months when it first began. And subsequent elections continued to be chaotic. Things changed more than 5 decades later when the 1840 presidential election saw widespread voting fraud. In response, then Representative Alexander Duncan proposed a uniform election day for both presidential and House elections in 1844. The bill initially sought to require all states to hold their elections on a single day. That is on Tuesday after the first Monday in November. While the House passed the bill, the Senate didn't table it before the 1844 election. Alexander Duncan reintroduced the bill in the next session, this time focusing solely on the presidential election. Various amendments were proposed during the bill's consideration. Ultimately, the House adopted the bill, and the Senate passed it with minor corrections. The bill was signed into law on January 23, 1845, by President John Tyler, making Tuesday the official day for Americans to vote for their president. But the mystery remains: why choose a Tuesday? Historians say the answer lies in 19th-century American lifestyle. The choice of Tuesday in November is deeply rooted on the country's agrarian culture of the time. November was ideal because it followed the completion of the harvest season. The month also avoided conflicts with both planting in the spring and early fall. This meant that farmers could plant their crop and travel to vote, which would take days in those times. Additionally, Tuesday was chosen due to religious reasons. In Christian practice, the term Sabbath is often used to refer to Sunday. It recognizes the day of Jesus Christ's resurrection, and many Christians would observe a weekly day of rest and worship on Sunday. In the 19th century, polling stations were quite far from rural areas, and for voters, particularly farmers, it meant at least a day-long journey. So to avoid forcing people to travel on the holy day of Sabbath, Monday was not considered, and Wednesday, which was designated as the market day for farmers, was also rejected. Naturally, Tuesday emerged as the prime choice and eventually became the official day. However, Tuesday as an election day has had its fair share of opposition. Modern-day political experts say that voting on a weekend would see an increase in turnout. They argue that holding election on a Tuesday hinders voter access due to work commitments. One of the organizations leading the cause to reassign voting day is called Why Tuesday? Founded in 2005, the group raises awareness about America's low voter turnout. It aims to highlight the lack of accessible voting options, and they are leading the fight to move election day to the weekend. Many countries hold elections on weekends. Australia, Germany, France, and Japan generally conduct elections on Saturdays or Sundays. Brazil votes on the first Sunday of October, with runoffs on the last Sunday if needed. Meanwhile, Mexico shifted from the first Sunday of July to the first Sunday of June from 2021. The European Union also typically holds its parliament election on a weekend. However, in the Anglosphere, such as the United States, United Kingdom, and Canada, elections are typically held on weekdays. It is influenced by historical Christian practice of observing Sabbath. Meanwhile, in India, elections occur over multiple days with different phases for various constituencies. In the case of the United States, it's worth noting that while federal elections are on a Tuesday, state and local elections have more flexibility. However, many states align their elections with the federal date simply for convenience. On November 5th, the Tuesday after the first Monday of November, millions of Americans will line up at polling booths. They will exercise their fundamental right of self-governance. As for the Tuesday election day, the law that has continued for over 175 years faces little opposition and will likely remain for many more years to come.
History for you. Boy, that was a bit confusing at times and a bit saturating, but never mind, it's still some education. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, that is where we wrap things up for AM Prime. To the guests who are joining this morning, thank you very, very much for their time and for being with us to share their thoughts and opinions. And of course, to my team at WESN, who ensure that AM Prime go live. Ryan Gomez, Bergen Marwood, thank you very much. Naomi McNish, of course, as producer. I'm Keaton Shaw, reminding you today is a good day to have a good day. Make it a good one, a positive one. And we'll see you again very soon, hopefully. Bye-bye.
WESN.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Money is something we all deal with.